The crystalline halls of the ethery palace hummed with activity, thousands of minute vibrations flowing through Queen Illyria's body like a living tapestry. Her sensitive skin absorbed each subtle frequency, painting an intricate portrait of her surroundings that no ordinary eyes could perceive. "The delegations from 7 systems have arrived, Your Radiance," said Velix, her most trusted advisor. His voice created ripples in the air that Illyria interpreted as clearly as others might see a face. "And the Earth representative?" she asked, her fingers dancing across the armrests of her throne. The smooth, living crystal responded to her touch, shifting slightly to provide maximum comfort. "A solitary musician, as promised in their communication, quite unusual for such an important cultural exchange." Illyria's lips curved upward. The ethery had ruled this sector for millennia, their technology and mental capacities far surpassing most species they encountered. Yet humans fascinated her with their contradictions and creativity. "I find it refreshing. Bring him to the reception chamber." The palace, carved from a single massive crystal that grew from the planet's core, channeled sound in ways that allowed the naturally blind ethery to navigate their world with precision. Illyria's ancestors had developed this symbiotic relationship with their environment, evolving sensory organs that detected the slightest variations in vibration and energy. Marcus Vale clutched his cello case as he was escorted through corridors that seemed to sing with each footstep. The ambassador had warned him about the ethery's appearance, tall, willowy beings with opalescent skin and no discernible eyes, but nothing prepared him for their ethereal beauty. "The Queen awaits you," announced his guide before disappearing through what seemed like a solid wall. Marcus swallowed hard and stepped forward. The crystal before him rippled like water, allowing him passage into a chamber that shimmered with ambient light. At its center sat Queen Illyria, her form radiating a subtle glow. What struck Marcus wasn't her lack of eyes, just smooth skin where they would be on a human, but the intricate patterns that flowed across her skin like living tattoos, shifting with each sound in the room. "Marcus Vale of Earth," her melodic voice filled the space. "You travel alone between stars to share your music." "Yes, Your Radiance," he replied, bowing. "Where I come from, we believe music is a universal language." "A curious concept." Illyria tilted her head. "For us, vibration is life itself. Will you play for me now? I sense your instrument has a voice of its own." Marcus nodded, forgetting momentarily that she couldn't see the gesture. He unlatched his cello case and settled onto the offered seat, feeling unexpectedly nervous. He had performed in concert halls across Earth and 3 other planets, but something about this felt more intimate. He drew his bow across the strings, beginning with Bach's Cello Suite No. 1. The notes resonated with the crystal chamber, amplifying and transforming in ways he'd never experienced. The room itself seemed to join the performance, adding harmonics that complemented each note. Illyria gasped, her hands flying to her face. The patterns across her skin accelerated, pulsing with the rhythm of the music. "Is something wrong?" Marcus stopped playing. "Continue," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please." As he resumed, Illyria's world transformed. Beyond the usual vibrations she sensed, something new emerged: colors, shapes, movement. The music painted visions in her mind, sensations she had no words to describe. For the first time in her life, she was experiencing something akin to sight. "How are you doing this?" she asked, not wanting him to stop but needing to understand. Marcus shook his head, bewildered. "I'm just playing my instrument, Your Radiance." "Your music," Illyria stood, moving toward him with perfect precision despite her blindness. "It creates patterns I've never felt before, like seeing without eyes." As the final notes faded, Illyria reached out, her fingers hovering near his face. "May I?" Marcus nodded, then remembered to say yes. Her cool fingers traced his features with delicate precision. "I would know more of your music, Marcus Vale, and of you." In that moment, something shifted between them. A connection formed through sound and touch, bridging worlds and species. Neither could have predicted how this simple performance would alter the course of their lives and, potentially, the relationship between their kinds. "Play that sequence again," Illyria said, her voice hushed with wonder. Marcus adjusted his fingers on the cello's neck and repeated the passage from Dvorak's concerto. In the 3 weeks since his arrival, these private sessions had become a daily ritual. The Queen's private chambers, a vast dome of prismatic crystal, enhanced every note in ways that would be impossible elsewhere. "It's indescribable," she whispered as her fingers traced patterns in the air, following invisible currents. "Like liquid gold and crimson weaving together." Marcus watched in fascination as the bioluminescent patterns on her skin responded to his music, pulsing and shifting with each change in tone. Scientists might explain it as some neural cross-wiring between her auditory and visual processing centers triggered by his instrument's specific resonance patterns. But to him, it seemed like magic. "I never knew colors could feel this way," Illyria continued. "In our language, we have words for different vibrational frequencies, but nothing that captures this experience." Marcus smiled, lowering his bow. "On Earth, we have synesthesia. Some people naturally experience one sense through another. They might taste colors or see sounds. I never understood it until watching you." Illyria moved toward him with her characteristic grace, navigating the room as easily as any sighted person. She sat beside him on the crystalline bench, close enough that he could feel the slight coolness radiating from her skin. "Show me your world," she requested, her voice soft. "Through your music, show me Earth." Marcus closed his eyes, thinking of home, the forests near his childhood home in Colorado, the bustling streets of New York where he'd studied, the ocean he'd watched from a California cliff. He began to play, improvising a piece that wove these memories together. Illyria gasped. "There's so much, water, vast and deep, yet moving." "The Pacific Ocean," Marcus confirmed, amazed at her perception. "And high formations of something solid but ancient." "Mountains," he said, continuing to play as he described the landscapes that inspired each passage. For hours they continued, Marcus playing while Illyria described what she saw. Sometimes she would place her hand lightly on his arm to feel the music through his body as well as through the air. Each point of contact sent pleasant shivers across his skin. "You're an extraordinary teacher," Illyria said when he finally set down his bow, hands tired but heart full. "And you're an extraordinary student," he replied. "You perceive things in my music that even I don't consciously put there." A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with the ambient resonance of the crystal chamber. Marcus had noticed how the room itself seemed alive, subtly shifting to enhance acoustics or comfort. "Tomorrow is the interstellar delegation's final reception," Illyria said, breaking the silence. "You're scheduled to depart with them." Marcus felt a sudden heaviness in his chest. "Yes, I suppose I am." "Would you consider extending your stay? As a cultural ambassador, perhaps?" Her patterns shifted to something more rapid, which Marcus had begun to recognize as indicating nervousness or anticipation. "I'd like that," he answered, surprised by the intensity of his relief. "Very much." Illyria's hand found his, her touch cool but gentle. "There is much more I wish to learn from you, Marcus Vale." The intimacy of the moment was interrupted by the sound of the chamber door opening. Thaxos, the Queen's security advisor, entered with a stiff formality that seemed to cool the air. "Your Radiance, the Proximan delegation requests your presence," he announced, his skin patterns betraying his disapproval as he noted their proximity. "Tell them I'll arrive shortly," Illyria replied, not moving from Marcus's side. After Thaxos departed, she sighed. "Not everyone appreciates your presence here. Some fear what they don't understand." "And what is it they don't understand?" Marcus asked, suddenly aware that he was still holding her hand. "That some harmonies transcend species, planets, even logic." She squeezed his fingers gently before standing. "I must attend to my duties, but tonight would you play for me again? Something from your heart, not just your memory." "Of course," Marcus replied, watching as she glided toward the door, her form seeming to shimmer with the light filtered through the crystal walls. Only after she left did Marcus realize how deeply he'd been affected. He had traveled between stars seeking new audiences and experiences, never staying anywhere long. Yet the thought of leaving this world, leaving her, created an ache he hadn't anticipated. What had begun as artistic curiosity was transforming into something neither of them had words for yet. A resonance beyond music, bridging their different species, different senses, different worlds. In his quarters that evening, Marcus composed a new piece, one that expressed what he couldn't yet say aloud. When he would play it for her later that night, neither of them could have predicted how it would break down the final barriers between them, or the storm it would unleash among those who sought to keep their worlds apart. The Council of Elders demands an explanation. Your radiance. Thaxos's voice reverberated through the private chamber with barely contained agitation. The patterns on his skin pulsed in sharp, angular formations that Marcus had come to recognize as extreme displeasure. Illyria remained composed on her crystalline throne, though the subtle ripples across her luminescent skin betrayed her irritation. I wasn't aware I needed the Council's permission to appoint a cultural ambassador. It is unprecedented to extend such a position to a species with whom we have only preliminary diplomatic relations, Thaxos countered, particularly when the individual in question spends hours alone with our queen daily. Marcus shifted uncomfortably at the edge of the room. He'd been invited to this meeting as the subject of discussion, but felt increasingly like an intruder. 2 weeks had passed since his official appointment as Earth's cultural ambassador to the Ether, 2 weeks of deepening connection with Illyria that extended far beyond music. Ambassador Vale's presence has provided invaluable insights into human culture, Illyria stated, and his music has unique properties that. That what exactly? Interrupted Elder Melees, the oldest of the 3 counselors present. Her skin had faded to a pale translucence with age. That somehow allows you to see as humans do? These claims are scientifically dubious and politically concerning. Marcus stepped forward. With respect, Elder, I don't claim to understand the phenomenon myself, but Queen Illyria's experience is real. How convenient that only the Queen experiences this miracle, and only through your specific instrument, said the 3rd counselor, Dorax, his tone dripping with skepticism. Illyria rose, her full height impressive even among her own kind. I've indulged this inquiry out of respect for tradition, but my decisions are not subject to council approval. Ambassador Vale stays. The meeting concluded with tense formalities, but as the elders departed, Thaxos lingered. Your radiance, a moment in private. Illyria nodded for Marcus to leave, her hand briefly brushing his as he passed, a touch that had become their secret language. Outside in the corridor, Marcus leaned against the living crystal wall, which hummed faintly against his back. He couldn't hear the conversation inside, but knew it concerned him. The opposition was growing. Whispers followed him throughout the palace. Some ethery believed humans were manipulative, their emotions too volatile, their lifespans too brief for meaningful alliance. They fear what they cannot control. Marcus started at the voice. A female ethery he recognized as Nilith, one of Illyria's handmaidens, had approached silently. The queen has never been so alive, Nilith continued, her skin patterns forming gentle waves, a sign of sincerity Marcus had learned to read. But change frightens those in power. I don't want to cause problems for her, Marcus admitted. Nilith's head tilted. Perhaps that is why she trusts you. You see her as Illyria, not just as our queen. Before Marcus could respond, the chamber door slid open and Thaxos emerged, his gaze passing over Marcus with cold dismissal before he strode away. Inside, Illyria stood at the window overlooking the capital city, its crystalline spires catching the light of the twin moons. He believes you're a security risk, she said without turning, that humans may be using you to gain influence over me. Marcus approached slowly. And what do you believe? I believe in what I experience when you play. She turned toward him, her patterns flowing in the soft, rhythmic waves he'd come to associate with her more intimate moments. I believe in the colors you've shown me, the landscapes you've painted in my mind. Thaxos isn't entirely wrong, Marcus said softly. I do influence you just as you influence me. Isn't that what connection between any 2 beings means? Illyria moved closer, her hand finding his face with unerring precision. Her touch sent pleasant ripples across his skin. Tonight, I want to see more than landscapes, Marcus. I want to see you. The implications in her voice sent his pulse racing. Despite their physiological differences, the attraction between them had grown undeniable. The ethery were not so different from humans beneath their luminescent skin, something Marcus had learned during stolen moments of increasingly intimate contact. Are you certain, he asked, knowing the political implications of such a step. I've lived my entire life perceiving the world through vibrations, energy fields, subtle currents of air, she replied. But never have I felt anything like what happens when you're near me. When you play for me, I see colors. When you touch me. She took his hand and placed it against the center of her chest, where a faint rhythm pulsed beneath his fingers. I feel fire. That night, Marcus played for her as never before, a private concert that evolved into an exploration of touch and sensation. As his music filled the chamber, Illyria's perception of light and color intensified. Their coming together was both alien and familiar, two different beings finding unexpected harmony. Neither noticed the security monitor in the corner of the royal chamber, its sensors capturing every moment of their intimate encounter. Nor did they see Thaxos reviewing the footage later, his skin patterns shifting to a dark, determined configuration as he summoned the Council of Elders for an emergency session. The harmony they had discovered was about to face its greatest challenge, as forces within the palace moved to separate them permanently. Marcus knew something was wrong the moment the royal guards appeared at his quarters before dawn. Their skin patterns displayed the rigid, formal configuration he had come to recognize as official business, not the friendly, undulating waves he usually received from Illyria's personal security detail. "Ambassador Vale," the lead guard announced, "your presence is required in the Grand Assembly." At this hour, Marcus glanced at the chronometer. "What's happened?" The guards remained silent, flanking him as they escorted him through corridors that seemed unusually empty. The palace's crystal walls, normally humming with a gentle resonance, felt cold and brittle against his fingertips. When they entered the Grand Assembly chamber, Marcus immediately sensed the tension. The full Council of Elders sat in a semicircle, their skin patterns sharp and static. Thaxos stood at the center, projecting confidence and righteous indignation. Most troubling was Illyria's absence from her ceremonial position. "Ambassador Vale," Elder Males began, "evidence has been presented suggesting your relationship with Queen Illyria has compromised her judgment and potentially the security of our realm." Marcus straightened his shoulders. "I have nothing but respect for your queen and your people." "Respect," Thaxos activated a floating display panel. "Is this what humans call respect?" The panel shimmered to life, revealing intimate images of Marcus and Illyria from the previous night, their private moments exposed for all to see. A murmur rippled through the assembly. "You violated the sanctity of the royal chambers," Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. "I protected our queen from alien manipulation," Thaxos countered. "The council has voted. You will be escorted to a departing vessel within the hour. Any diplomatic relations with Earth will be conducted through proper channels henceforth." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "Does Queen Illyria know about this decision?" "Her radiance has been temporarily relieved of certain ceremonial duties while the council—" The massive doors to the chamber burst open, interrupting Thaxos mid-sentence. Illyria entered, flanked by her loyal handmaiden Nilith and several members of her personal guard. Her skin blazed with patterns Marcus had never seen before, intense, commanding configurations that made even the elders straighten in their seats. "I was unaware that the council possessed the authority to relieve their queen of any duties," she said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. "A fascinating constitutional interpretation." "Your Radiance," Thaxos began, "we acted only out of concern for—" "Silence," the single word cut through the room like a blade. "You invaded my privacy, manipulated my counsel, and attempted to banish my chosen companion without my knowledge." "The evidence clearly shows," Elder Dorax attempted. "The evidence shows exactly what I have already freely admitted to you in private session," Illyria interrupted, moving to stand beside Marcus. "That I have formed a bond with Ambassador Vale, that his music allows me to experience aspects of reality previously inaccessible to our kind, that we have found connection despite our differences." She turned to address the entire assembly. "For generations, we E3 have prided ourselves on our evolutionary adaptation, perceiving the universe through vibration rather than light. We considered it superior to primitive visual perception. Yet in our arrogance, we never considered what we might be missing." Illyria reached for Marcus's hand, her cool fingers intertwining with his. "Through Marcus's music, I have glimpsed new dimensions of experience. Imagine the possibilities for our people if we could bridge this perceptual gap, combine our vibrational sensitivity with the visual experience of other species." "It is unnatural," Thaxos insisted, though with less conviction. "Was it unnatural when our ancestors first developed symbiosis with the living crystal of our world?" Illyria countered. "Was it unnatural when we first learned to manipulate energy fields for space travel? Evolution, adaptation, growth, These come precisely from embracing the unknown. Marcus felt a surge of pride watching her command the room. This was the leader he had come to admire, brilliant, compassionate, and fearless. I stand before you not just as your queen, but as an Aetheri who has discovered something wondrous, Illyria continued. I will not allow fear or tradition to deny our people this opportunity for advancement. She squared her shoulders. The council will vote again now in my presence. Will we embrace this potential bridge between our worlds or retreat into isolation? One by one, the elders shifted in their seats. Even Thaxos could see the changing tide as several counselors' skin patterns shifted to more receptive configurations. And if we vote against this connection, Elder Males asked. Illyria's grip on Marcus's hand tightened slightly. Then I shall abdicate and pursue this research as a private citizen. My cousin Thales has always coveted the throne. I'm sure she would rule adequately in my absence. The threat of her abdication sent shockwaves through the chamber. For all their disagreements with her decisions, Illyria was beloved by her people and respected even by her opponents. Elder Males was the first to shift her voting pattern to approval, followed by others until only Thaxos and two hardcore traditionalists remained opposed. The council has spoken, Illyria announced. Ambassador Vale stays, and our research into this perceptual phenomenon continues. As they left the chamber together, Marcus whispered, "Would you really have abdicated?" Illyria's skin patterns formed the subtle, rippling configuration he had come to recognize as her smile. For what we've discovered together, without hesitation, some harmonies are worth fighting for. They walked through the corridor, past surprised onlookers and whispering courtiers, neither knowing that their greatest challenge still lay ahead, when forces beyond the palace would threaten not just their bond, but both their worlds. The laboratory chamber hummed with energy as Marcus drew his bow across the cello strings, producing a sustained, resonant G-note. Around him, Aetheri scientists monitored crystalline instruments, their skin patterns shifting with concentration and excitement. "Frequency holding stable," reported Dr. Javix, the lead researcher. "Neural harmonics in alignment." 3 months had passed since the confrontation with the council. What had begun as a personal connection between Marcus and Illyria had evolved into a groundbreaking scientific collaboration. The phenomenon that allowed Illyria to see through Marcus's music was being studied, refined, and expanded. In the center of the room, Illyria sat within a focusing array of crystal prisms. As Marcus played, her expression transformed with wonder. "The resolution is improving," she said. "I can distinguish individual faces now." This was their 5th session with the new amplification system, a sophisticated integration of Aetheri crystal technology and principles derived from Earth acoustics. The goal: to develop a method allowing all Aetheri to experience visual perception through specially calibrated sound. Marcus transitioned into a different passage, one they had discovered was particularly effective at conveying spatial relationships. The laboratory itself was being projected into Illyria's mind through sound alone. "Remarkable," whispered Nilith, who had become one of their strongest supporters. "And this could work for all our people." "In theory," Marcus replied between phrases. "Though Illyria's sensitivity is unusually high, others might need more intensive amplification." Their work had silenced many critics. Even Thaxos had reluctantly acknowledged the potential benefits, though he remained distant and watchful. As the session concluded, the scientists filed out, leaving Marcus and Illyria alone in the chamber. "You're tired," she said, sensing the subtle changes in his movements as he packed away his cello. "Just a little, it's worth it." Illyria approached, her movements fluid and graceful. "You've given so much of yourself to this project, to me." "You've given just as much," he replied, "risking your position, your reputation." "A small price for what we've discovered." Her fingers traced his jawline with familiar tenderness. "But there's something troubling you. I can feel it in your music today, a dissonance that wasn't there before." Marcus sighed, taking her hand in his. "The Earth Diplomatic Corps sent a message yesterday. They've reviewed our research and they want me to return to Earth." The patterns across Illyria's skin froze momentarily, the Aetheri equivalent of shock. "For how long?" "They're proposing I lead a new xenomusicology department at the Interspecies Academy. It's a permanent position, Illyria." Silence fell between them, heavy with implications. Their relationship had deepened into something neither had words for, beyond the physical intimacy they'd shared, beyond the scientific breakthrough they'd pioneered. Something fundamentally transformative. "I see," she finally said, the patterns on her skin shifting to a slow, somber rhythm he'd never witnessed before. "I haven't given them an answer," Marcus added quickly. "But you must consider it. It's an honor, a recognition of your work." She turned away, her voice maintaining its composure though her skin betrayed her emotion. "You've already stayed far longer than your original assignment." "I don't want to leave you," he admitted, the words inadequate for the depth of his feeling. Illyria was silent for a long moment, her patterns shifting through complex configurations before settling into something decisive. "Perhaps you don't have to." That evening, she called an extraordinary session of the Council of Elders. Marcus stood beside her throne, uncertain of her intentions but trusting her completely. "Esteemed counselors," Illyria began, "our work with Ambassador Vale has proven more successful than anyone anticipated. We stand at the threshold of a perceptual revolution for our people." The council members' patterns showed cautious agreement. Even the most resistant had been impressed by the preliminary results. "But we face a critical juncture," she continued. "Earth has requested Ambassador Vale's return to lead an important new initiative." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Therefore, I propose an unprecedented step in etheri-human relations." Illyria rose from her throne. "I will accompany Ambassador Vale to Earth as an etheri diplomatic envoy." The chamber erupted in patterns of shock and protest. "No etheri monarch has ever left our system," exclaimed Elder Males. "No etheri monarch has ever experienced sight through sound either," Illyria countered. "Times change, possibilities expand." "And the throne," Thaxos demanded. "My cousin Thales will serve as regent during my absence. The Constitution allows for such arrangements during diplomatic missions." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, Illyria's logic prevailed. The research was too important, the alliance with Earth too valuable to risk losing momentum. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood with Illyria at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, watching as her homeworld diminished into the distance. Her hand rested in his, her skin patterns flowing with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Are you afraid?" he asked softly. "Terrified," she admitted with unexpected candor. "I'm leaving everything I've known, but—" her fingers tightened around his. "I'm also experiencing something entirely new." "What's that?" Her patterns shifted to the configuration he had come to recognize as joy. "Hope, possibility, the chance to build something that connects not just our two species, but connects different ways of perceiving reality itself." Marcus lifted his free hand to her face, tracing the luminescent patterns that had become as familiar to him as his own reflection. "I love you," he said simply, words he had felt for months but never voiced. Illyria's pattern rippled in response, forming a unique configuration he had never seen before. "In my language, we have no single word for love," she explained. "Instead, we speak of resonance between souls. My patterns are showing you that resonance now. Can you feel it?" "I can," he whispered, understanding on a level deeper than words. As the stars streaked past them, Illyria leaned against him. "On Earth, will you play for me? Will you show me your world through your music as you've shown me mine?" "Every day," Marcus promised. "And together we'll create a new symphony, one that bridges worlds, perceptions, and hearts." Behind them, the etheri homeworld